Hello and welcome one more week to You Talking to Me, the Euranet Plus debate. Today we are going to talk about glyphosate, the controversial ingredient of Monsanto's most popular pesticide, known as Roundup, the pesticide which is the most used in Europe and in the world. The polemic around this chemical is focused on the doubts concerning the possible consequences for the public health and the disturbing lack of agreement within the scientific community. Europe is now in a key point in this issue because authorization on the use of glyphosate is arriving to its end this month, and the European Union institutions are struggling to find an agreement on whether this authorization should be extended or not. But before going forward, I would like to introduce my guest here with me today. Please welcome Ms. Anthea McIntyre. She's member of the European Conservatives in the European Parliament, and Mr. Bart Staes, member of the European Parliament for the Greens. Okay, so this week, for the third time, European countries didn't manage to reach an agreement didn't give enough support to the extension of the authorization on the use of glyphosate as the Commission was proposing. So my first question to open the debate would be, why are we having the debate now, and specifically about glyphosate and not about other chemicals? Is it because it's the most dangerous? Is it because we're talking about Monsanto and it's always polemic?
Well, the debate about glyphosate has, of course, to do with the scientific debate and the announcement by IARC, the WHO, the World Health Organization body, who said that possibly glyphosate could be causing cancer. And that, of course, has risen a huge debate in the scientific community with different advices and opinions from EFSA, our Food Safety Authority, also other bodies of the World Health Organization. But I think the main thing is that the whole debate on glyphosate started also as a debate about the overuse of pesticides, of chemical substances in agriculture on the one hand, and on the other hand, I think it starts the debate on the need for a transition of our agricultural system into a more sustainable system. And the debate there is also part of the debate here in the European Parliament, with also in the meantime the debate and the adoption of the report of Mrs. McIntyre yesterday.
There's a significant public mobilization around this debate, and pro-glyphosate forces are claiming that actually politics are undermining science. Is this debate getting too emotional?
Yes, I think we need to concentrate on the science. I understand people's concerns, but we have the European Food Safety Agency, which is full of highly paid scientists that we as the European Union are paying for their best scientific advice, and they're saying it's okay. And I think that we should listen to that. It's true that the World Health Organization came up with a different opinion, but our European organization is saying it's okay and it should be approved. And I think that we should take the politics out of it and look at the science.
Can I comment to that? Sure. On EFSA, with three other members of the European Parliament, I raised a request to EFSA to have an access to the documents on which they're based their positive opinion on glyphosate. And in fact, we are, in one or another way, we are refused access to those documents. And I deplore that. I think that EFSA, who should work according to high standards, but also in full transparency, should make public the documents in one or another way. They say there were 182 documents or studies or opinions from scientists, and they are only prepared now to open up 100 of those 182 studies, and also in the very difficult system of go to a reading room, secrecy, that kind of things. And I think more transparency, being more open in the debate would help the debate and make it more understandable for the general public.
Why, if it's clear, this lack of transparency Mr. Staes is claiming? I mean, why, if the scientific evidence it's so obvious, why are we not having a more transparent process then, which is something many organizations are also claiming.
I don't have a problem with transparency, but we are talking about a very technical subject. So we don't want to have to water down the science in order to make it easily accessible to people who aren't technologically minded. I believe that the Parliament, and I don't claim to be a scientist, I don't think the Parliament should claim scientific knowledge. I think that we should employ the best minds, the best scientists, and that we should rely on the scientific evidence. Too often we let politics come in, because frankly, Bart, you wouldn't vote for it even if it was as safe as anything. Your party, the Greens, don't support the use of chemicals.
Well, we have another vision on how to organize agriculture. We are really standing for a transition of the whole system. And we think that the actual system of the common agricultural policy should be changed into a common food policy, which takes into account environment, which takes into account agricultural, which takes into account trade, development policies as well, so that we have a very coherent policy, whereby also the incomes of farmers are much more protected than they used to be now, because we all know that farmers have a very difficult life. They rely on the one hand, they are dependent on the one hand on the inputs of technological input, agri-chemical substances, and on the other hand they are in the hands of the distribution sector, which imposes them prices to be paid, which makes that in fact their income is very low, or even sometimes below the cost price of the work they are doing. And I think that is a policy that we cannot defend.
Now that you mentioned farmers, I would like to include in this debate one of the questions from our Euranet Plus members. This is a question coming from France. If we can hear it, please.
Hello everybody. The farmers and the agri-cooperatives have been doing a strong lobbying in favor of the glyphosate herbicide. They present it as an important tool to prevent soil erosion and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Without it, they say their competitiveness would be hammered and EU food production jeopardized. What alternative could be proposed to the farmers who obviously are not prepared to live without glyphosate? Thanks a lot for your answer.
Okay, so a question for both. What is the alternative to glyphosate?
Well, the farmers in my region tell me there isn't, that they are desperate to continue the use. It's very important that we don't withdraw all the tools that our farmers need to actually keep on growing food. It's not easy in these days, and I'm very much in favour of looking at technological solutions of all sorts, and it's great pity that in this Parliament the Greens don't accept any idea of advances in technology. But it's technology not only to increase production, but to make better use of resources, to improve the distribution. There is so much that innovation can bring, and that was the subject of my report yesterday. And I'm very glad that all the main groups supported it, but sadly far right, far left and the Greens, they just don't go down that road.
Well, I do not accept the statement that we as Greens are anti-technological or anti-science. We have a different point of view. We also have scientists that are supporting our points of view. I think about Professor Olivier de Schutter, who used to be very active in the United Nations, who is now the head of a scientific team, IPES, who is really proposing scientific advice on how to build up a different agricultural system. So that is the way we see it. We use science in another way than the mainstream thoughts of many people and of many farmers. And therefore we go for a transition. We do think that there are alternatives. The people who are working, the farmers that are working in the organic system do prove there are alternatives, and with yields and a productivity that is at least as high as in the traditional agriculture. There are systems of non-chemical techniques to combat weeds. We should do something about the education system of farmers. We have to give through other kinds of knowledge, whereby not the starting point is the use of chemical products, whereby there is a transition also in thoughts and in-depth knowledge. knowledge of what is possible. We have to take into account that we need living soils, and the use of a pesticide as glyphosate does kill our soil. It kills all life. It kills bacteria. It kills algae, and we need those animals, those small animals in the soil to be productive, to be very good. And that is not anti-science. That is not anti-technological. On the contrary.
But in fact, if you use glyphosate, you require less working of the soil, and it can be an improvement, not a negative thing at all. I just feel that there are lots of different technological advances that apply to both conventional and organic. I'm very pro-organic, but I don't believe that we could just say that everything has to be organic. I think we need to have choice, and we particularly need availability of technological innovation for all types of farmers, and small farmers particularly. I'm not advocating costly solutions that only available to large-scale farmers. We need to bring it right down to the small farmers too. And I just think that we should keep an open mind on a lot of these technologies, and not just put a block. I mean, anything that comes from a big company, you're very anti-corporate. So the fact that it's a Monsanto product, I think, would make you vote against it anyway.
But you were mentioning the choice. I think there is a huge dependence on this product.
Yes.
As I was saying at the beginning, it's the most used pesticide, which glyphosate is part of in the world and in the European Union. So having a monopoly is never a good thing, even from an economical point of view. I'm not talking now about ethics, So shouldn't we have more choices for farmers? I mean,
it would be great if we had more choices for farmers. Yes, we should. But it's extremely difficult for any company to bring a new substance to the market. And you know, in the sort of years since 2009, we've lost 70% of active substances. So this means the toolbox for the farmer is getting smaller and smaller, and yet we're expecting him to be more efficient, to produce more food, and yet we're hampering his activities. And, you know, I think the farmers themselves would like to use as little pesticide, herbicide, fungicide as possible. It's very expensive. But until there are other options, and until we can develop more and more better options, this is the only thing we've got. And if you take this away, you're just going to destroy food production.
But that is why we need a different common agricultural policy. We have to have a transition from simply agricultural policy to a food policy, whereby we help farmers also to go into a transition. Now, if farmers wants to go a different way, they have to pay it themselves. They have to take the risk themselves, and it is up to public funds and to European funds to support them in helping in those traditions towards a more biodiversity, towards a more sustainable farming, which is better for nature, which is better for healthy food, which is better for the health of human beings.
And that's why we promote things like integrated pest management. But that chemicals are still a part of that. There are all sorts of things you can do towards integrated pest management, which I suspect some of them you might support, but we cannot just ban substances which are managing to help us produce good food and healthy food.
The problem with integrated pest management is the way to go, for sure, and it is also written into EU legislation as a way to follow. But the problem with glyphosate, using it together with integrated pest management, is that glyphosate is one of those chemicals that really kills all life, all bacteria, all algae, which kills everything. And then it is very difficult to rely on integrated pest management and the biodiversity of the whole system.
I would like to include in this debate another question coming from other of our Euranet Plus members. Is a question coming from Radio AMS in Germany.
I would like to know, as long as it is not 100% clear, clarified, proved, whatever, that glyphosate is not carcinogenic, so why to take the risk?
So why to take the risk is the question of our German journalist.
I don't believe we are taking a risk. I believe that the EFSA evidence is saying it's not carcinogenic. It was quite happy for the glyphosate to be approved. So I don't think that we're taking a risk in this. I think it's perfectly accepted. It's been used for years. It's the most safe chemical that we've had. Roundup has been used for many, many years. And I think that this is just being stirred up to alarm people completely unnecessarily. And if you look at EFSA, they are very, very careful about what they approve. It's not that they've just said, oh yes, let's try it out. I'm all for the precautionary principle when we don't have the evidence. But when we have the scientific evidence, we should listen to that evidence. And EFSA, WTO, many organizations now are saying it is safe.
Well, I disagree. I disagree with that statement, and I think their Parliament supported the Green point of view when we adopted the resolution on glyphosate a few months ago, and where in one of the paragraphs the Parliament clearly says we need an independent study on the effects of glyphosate on human health, and I think that independent study is really needed with open access to all information. Where we can decide on the conflict between IARC on the one hand, so the Society of Scientists Combating Cancer of the WHO, the World Health Organization on the one hand, and EFSA on the other hand, and we need that independent study. What is now on the table of the member states is a technical prolongation of glyphosate for 12 till 18 months and waiting for the opinion also of ECHA, which is the Chemical Substances Agency. And I hope also ECHA will have a very transparent, fully transparent investigation, not only on the effect of glyphosate on the fact if it causes yes or no cancer, but also on the fact what is the effect on biodiversity and all those other important things. And I think that is the next debate to do.
But don't forget that same motion that we voted on in the last plenary, the Parliament supported the extension of glyphosate.
9 years.
And 9 years. But now we're seeing that was rejected, and I'm saddened that the member states are just sort of washing their hands of it. There are a lot of abstentions. They're not prepared to back the science.
Member states are meeting this month again to try to find an agreement. If not, if the appeal committee doesn't find a solution, then the Commission could take a decision on its own. So it seems we can be talking about this topic for a while now. Thanks so much for coming, for being here. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid we are running out of time, so we will continue talking about this debate. Thank you very much, and thanks for watching.